Hi, everyone.
Hello.
All right, so we're gonna get started in just a couple of minutes here as we're getting a few people still joining the call. Lots of people joining now. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly take care of some VanQ housekeeping items, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Sergei. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining our VanQ this month. I know we're all probably in the midst of summer vacations and all that stuff, so we definitely appreciate you all joining us. And then as always, we are always looking for speakers. We do have someone planned for August, but if you're interested in speaking at our meetup in September or October, please reach out to me either just through meetup message or send me an email, and we'd be happy to book you in. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass this over to Sergei. So I'll give him a chance to kind of introduce himself a little bit and then just dive right into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jocelyn. Hey, everyone. My name is Sergii Tolbatov, and I'm Quality Engineering Manager. I do a quick introduction once I jump to my slides. So I just wanted to take a quick note that apparently once I'll be sharing my slides, my video won't work anymore for some reason. We've been trying to sort it out with Jocelyn, but it doesn't seem to be working. So just to give you a note that it's expected that I'll disappear from your screens. All right, so today we are going to talk about tips for building and managing an evolving QA team. And right now you guys should see my slides in 1 second. Let me know once it appears on your screens, please. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, let's get started. So I think I'll take around 30 minutes to go through the slides. And please have your questions ready for Q&A session after that. And we'll have another probably 30 minutes to start some round of discussions. And I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So first of all, what is the agenda for today? I did prepare a couple of interesting facts, which I find to be relevant and interesting for this particular conversation. Also, we'll talk about whether you lead an evolving team and what that actually means, the word evolving in this context. What kind of leader are you? So I also have one nice slide to talk about different leadership techniques, which I do practice in my work, and they help a lot. We'll talk about some particular tips to be a good leader from my perspective. And I guess needless to say that there is no good conversation without some life stories. So I prepared a couple of those for you as well. And then we'll talk about the questions. All right, let's get started. A couple words about myself. So once again, my name is Sergii Tolbatov. I do have more than 12 years experience in quality assurance and quality engineering. I think I've spent around 5 years in the very beginning taking hands-on engineering roles. So I've been starting from a junior QA, been doing lots of manual and automated testing. And after that, I was transitioning more to kind of team lead and leadership roles. And that's something what I've been doing for the last 7 years. As part of my professional skills and areas of interest, so definitely it's quality management, building quality assurance teams. Lately, for the last couple of years, I've been doing quite a bunch of consulting with different clients here in mainland, lower mainland. I'm a big fan of test automation, and always try to introduce it to my projects. And also, I mean, probably any quality assurance person likes to measure quality of the products we do ship. So that's something what I like to do as well. Okay, getting to the quick facts. So it's quite surprising when you look at these numbers, but the fact is that according to the recent Gallup surveys, only 30% of employees are really engaged based on the surveys which were conducted in the US. So what is actually an engaged employee and why is it even important for this particular topic? So engaged employees are those people which don't really just attend to work and follow their formal duties, but those are who really interested in getting results, developing the company, going for an extra mile to do things done. And this is obviously very important these days, because if you look at our environment, especially in IT, it's very competitive, and only those companies which get the right people and those companies which invest in people are really successful with their services and products. So that's why this aspect is extremely important. And I believe as long as you're taking a management position, you really need to invest in developing this factor in your group. Another thing is that 70% of manager impact, so quality of the manager accounts for 70% of variance in team engagement. So in other words, that means that you as a team lead or a manager, you really impact whether your team members are engaged or not. And I guess everyone been experiencing such examples when your manager isn't really interested in what the team is doing, and there is a huge gap and disconnect between the team and the person who is leading the team. So that's exactly what makes people to just attend to work, but not really be interested and be engaged in what they are doing. Excuse me. Well, and lastly, it appears that only 20% of managers invest in their teams, and this particular number talks about that only 20% of people who were interviewed strongly agreed that they had a good conversation with their team managers, with their bosses about what are the career aspirations and how they actually can get to that point. And that's actually a very alarming thing, because that means that, again, the rest, 80%, those people most likely are not super happy with their jobs, and they clearly, at least I guess most of them, are not engaged employees. Okay, so what is actually the difference between managing and evolving your team? So I think it's pretty simple, that like managing usually consists of three core things, three core values which you leverage and exercise during your job duties. So you would set goals, you would check results, and you would most likely manage performance, but that one is not always happening with some of the managers. But when it comes to evolving the team, it's completely different, because if you think about the first three bullets for managing part, it's really about just making work done. It's not about developing your team. It's not about motivating your team to do something better and something differently. But evolving is really about, first of all, to me, providing the vision. So what I mean here is it is really important, especially for QA teams, to be engaged in what is the actual end goal we're trying to get. So I guess many of us been in a situation when you're working on some release, you're developing either some product or you're implementing something for the client, and no one really knows, I mean, like on the working level, what is the end result? What are we trying to get? So we are developing some features, we are testing these features, we have some deadlines, we are pushing towards these deadlines. But what is the business value of whatever we do? Like, what is the gain? What are the gains for the client? What kind of business optimization are they getting from that? Is it like they will optimize their CSR process from spending 5 minutes on a client to 1 minute? Or what are we actually gaining there? So having this understanding and providing this understanding to the team highly increases team engagement. And I always do it as a rule of thumb. And as long as I receive this understanding and this vision, I always make sure that this is something what I share with my team. And believe me or not, it really helps to keep people more engaged and more interested in what they're doing, since they're not just pushing some feature to production, but they're helping client to get from 5 minutes to 1 minute. And that helps. Development path. So obviously, like everyone is talking about development, education, reading something, going through some courses. But in fact, this development path is not very clear at jobs. And people not always understand what are the actual steps they need to take to get to some point and what are the options. And sorry, guys, I guess someone is not on mute and there is some background noise there. Yeah, and it looks like someone is commenting my accent. Thank you. Yeah, and basically, if you can outline this development path to your team members and they can clearly understand what are the options, whether they are going with direction to technical development, whether they get into a leadership role in some time, that really helps to motivate your team and to make sure they understand where they're heading, and they just not attend day to day to work, and they are not really interested in what will be happening in the next half year or year. And we're talking about evolving your team, right? We are not just talking about the management. Coaching is super important component here, because as long as you just set some tasks and check results, there is no development. So obviously there is some, very little, because you get some experience and stuff, but without providing your guidance as a team leader, because you most likely have more experience, you have better vision there. So if you don't invest in your team members in that way, they won't grow and they won't evolve. Inspiration is also extremely important part, at least in my practice, because that's something what makes people want to step up. That's something what makes people want to learn new technologies and do something different. Set for success, that's the last one but not least. So this item is really talks about not just dropping something on your team members, but making sure that those tasks which you provide, which you give them, they are capable of doing that. And obviously there will always be some challenging part, and people need to be challenged by what they're doing, as long as you're actually looking at evolving and growing team. But there is absolutely a blurred line which makes someone successful in that role and in that particular task or project, or makes someone to be super disappointed and not being able to properly complete it. So that's really about whether you lead an evolving team or not. So the next slide I wanted to share is about situational leadership. I actually was super lucky to attend one of the trainings which was called in the same way, situational leadership, many years back when I was just starting my career. And you know what? During these years, I didn't really see anything better than this. I was applying it on my day-to-day duties, and this is something what perfectly works. So I think some of you might seen it because it's pretty popular one, but I'll probably shed some light to what it is and how it works. So the idea here is that any group of employees can be divided into 4 categories, depending on their experience and how many years they worked, what they actually can do in terms of the task complexity, and where do they stand in terms of motivation and interpersonal skills. So the first group would normally be someone fresh in the field. So that would be some junior QA engineers who are just fresh out from university, or maybe changing gears from different areas of work. And these people definitely will need a lot of your support. So the style which you might want to apply here is cold telling. So it means that when you set the task, you need to be pretty descriptive of what you want to achieve, how to get to that point, and you'll be doing some checkpoints in between. And definitely you would want to spend some good portion of time while checking the results and providing the right feedback to that person. So that helps to understand what are the expectations and what is the right way of doing that. You might even think about it as a micromanagement in a good way. The next stage is selling. So what happens here is, and to me, I think that's one of the most complicated areas here. You get the same guy who already spent 1 or 2 years on the team or some other team, doesn't matter, but that's again, relatively new person in the field. And that person already often thinks that there is a quite good knowledge behind that person, and the person is able to do pretty much everything on own, but in fact it's not. And this person still needs a lot of attention and help and support. But the point here is when you work with S1, you most likely not get any resistance, and that person will be very receptive of what you're asking and what you're trying to get. But with S2, sometimes it happens that you would be getting some pushback because, again, that engineer would be thinking that, yes, I already know it. Why do you tell me this? And that's exactly when people start talking about, oh, my boss is micromanaging me. So to avoid this situation, you want to be wiser here. And that's why it is called selling. So you still would be very detailed in what you want to get, and perhaps you'll be less detailed in terms of how you want to get this task done. And then you'll definitely be providing quite a big bunch of feedback, but that feedback will be more careful and mindful, considering what I've been describing about this type of employees before. So when it comes to S3, you're looking at someone with fairly good experience, still not an expert, maybe spent 3-5 years in the field, knows a lot of things, how to do and how to achieve results. So here, what is important is you don't micromanage, you give some tasks. They could be more of a high-level thing already, and most likely you'll not get any troubles with that group of people. Still providing some good portion of feedback, and I think these people are very easy to work with. So it's really important to not micromanage them and to make sure that you still give them enough of details. And finally, get into S4. So these are your top performers, which you normally call. So that's your core team, people been working in the field many years. They know everything and they know how to get things done. And I guess in most cases, they will even know how to do things, some particular tasks, even better than you. And that's also important thing to consider and to acknowledge that fact. So the point here is often people think that, okay, this guy is super pro. He has been doing this for years and I don't really need to do anything. I'll just delegate and the task will be done. And that would work. But the problem here is these people still expect you to support them, not in terms of how they need to accomplish something or how they perform the task, but they're still looking for your feedback and they expect some appreciation and they want to hear some praise and they want to know that they're valuable people. So that's the only comment and the only hint which you want to practice here with S4. Well, that's pretty much explains the situational leadership model. And just to recap, we have 4 groups of people depending on their experience and depending on their interpersonal skills and profiles. And we do want to apply absolutely different techniques in terms of how do we work with these people, how do we set tasks, how do we provide feedback. Okay, so 5 tips to be a good leader. So the first tip is don't separate managing and evolving. And again, to remind, so we're talking about managing an evolving team, which means that we are not just going to work and getting some tasks done, but we, at the end of the day, want to make sure that our team evolves and our team expands their expertise with every project completed. So that means that, like, if you start separating it, and this is actually something what happens a lot, because if you think about it, evolving the team is a lot of work, and this is a lot of investment. Actually, that's part of the tip 3, which I'll cover here. But as soon as you just start separating these two items, that means that most likely you'll tend to focus on the first one, and you'll never be in a position when your team develops very well, and that's not what you'll achieve here. So tip number 2 is know your team. So this item for me is extremely important. As long as you don't know your team members, you don't know what are their interests, you cannot really be helpful in terms of how they can grow, how they can better achieve their tasks. So for instance, if someone just got a newborn and you're asking that person to go and do some overtime over the weekend, obviously that person won't look at you well and won't perceive you well, and that's not something what you ever want to do as a good manager. So that's why you should better know your team. Tip number 3, nothing great has been ever achieved without an investment. I was slightly trying to explain this point just before. Evolving the team is a lot of work. So that's all the feedbacks which you'll be providing to your team members, all the guidance and coaching. And probably to give you an example, I think many people have been into this situation as a manager or as a team member. So when manager sets a task, obviously there would be different ways of completing it. And it's very frequent when manager thinks that, okay, I would complete this task in this way and I would expect this and that. And then employee or team member does it slightly differently or a lot differently. And the first case would be, all right, as long as the result is acceptable, I'm fine with that. That could work. But the next time when this task is being performed, it will be performed again, not in a way as manager expects. So the other way around here is that you would sit with your team member, you would explain what exactly you expected, how you wanted it to be completed. You'll have a bit of argument there, most likely, but at the end of the day, you'll find some middle ground and you'll make sure that the next time you're getting results in the way you want them. And this will help to save some time and make more successful work later on. But this will require you to invest your time today. Tip number 4, respect your team. So I guess very little to say here. So people really feel when you don't respect them and they won't work for you. They will be looking for different teams. They will be looking for different company. But as soon as you don't show your respect, you'll not be leading or having any good team who wants to go an extra mile. And the last one is be vigilant. So what does it mean actually? So being vigilant is really about paying attention to details. And some time back, I went across one story which really struck my mind. So there was a biopharm company, I think it was somewhere in Europe, I believe it was in Netherlands, and they were developing a new drug. And the drug was supposed to help with allergies. And they already got to the final stages, so the drug was almost approved for the production, and they were allowed to go through the trials with people. And they started administration of the drug to a group of volunteers. And there was a woman who was responsible for getting results after the drug was administered. And what she noticed is when people were checking in after some time with her, they were happy, they were smiling, they were making jokes. And that was sort of weird for her. And actually, it wasn't direct part of her duty to even think about it, but what she did, she decided to step up and she made a report to her leadership team and she reported about this fact. So she was vigilant. And from the other hand, the management team also just didn't disregard it, but they paid attention to that and they called a meeting, they started talking about it, so they were vigilant as well. at the end of the day, what happened is this drug failed to help with allergies. But what actually happened is after some further research, they realized that this drug is actually helping to fight depression. And they were able to launch this drug as a antidepressant drug. And that was only because that particular woman decided to pay attention to this, which was not really relevant to what they've been researching. It wasn't really about the purpose of the drug they've been developing. She reported that to the leadership team. Leadership team paid attention to that, made some further research, and they got a new drug to the market. So that's a great example of being vigilant. And needless to say, if you were to think about how that could be applied to our field, QA team is definitely one of those teams who are most closest to the client. And very often we get some sort of insights which not other team gets ever. Like I've been in so many situations when my team members were working with the clients, with end users, and they were receiving those sorts of feedbacks or propositions or ideas, which no one from BA team or development team ever had to hear. And we were gathering those things, bringing to the team. We were brainstorming how those can be handled. And from one hand, it was helping to produce better product for the clients. From the other hand, we were bringing more business to our companies. And that was win-win situation. That's about being vigilant. All right, couple stories here. So speaking of the tip 1, 2, and 3, at one company I was working with a fairly big team. I probably had around 50 engineers at some point, and that company had sort of a tradition working with the students a lot, and because of the huge growth, that was one of the sort of kind of sourcing opportunities to staff the projects and to make sure that the company delivers. And as soon as my project was growing really fast and I was getting some experienced people and lots of fresh people, either out from university or just with very few experience, I had to scale the team, and I had to introduce QA leads. So at that point of time, I was in capacity of a QA manager, and I had to get 2 QA leads for the team, and I wasn't able to get anyone experienced. So I was put in a position that I really need to work with the existing team and find someone, coach someone, invest in those people, and that's what exactly happened. So I was able to identify a couple of bright guys who were willing to grow their experience, to become leaders, to go for an extra mile. And after a couple of years, they were very decent QA leads, capable of leading teams of 20 people. Another example, which I have for tips 5 and 2. So there was one guy who was interviewing to our company, and he didn't really impress the team, the hiring team. So he was provided with the feedback, what went wrong, and what he might be needing to be successful for that particular position. And then he came back after 6 months, I believe, or so. And I obviously had that feedback from the previous interviews. And those feedbacks were talking about some lack of customer-facing capabilities, about overall skills like technical background and stuff. So what actually happened is I tried to be vigilant, and I saw a great potential in that person. And I was able to see that this person's really technically focused. And I was sort of thinking that if I hire the guy, I'm able to work with him. I'll have to invest time, but he would be a great team member and he would fit the team very well. And you know what? I did hire him, and in a couple of years, he really became a rockstar customer tech support engineer. And believe it or not, it was obviously, like, from the name of the position, you understand that it was a customer-facing position. So he was I would say even part of the client's team, and they loved him. They absolutely adored the guy. And the point here is that it was really about trying to see what are the prospects and what are the potential points with that particular person, and how do you establish development paths, and how do you make this person successful. Well, and lastly, for the tip 4, is it fun to be a QA lead? The power of team rotation. I like this story in terms that I think it would be pretty much applicable. Oh, sorry. It would be pretty much applicable to all the teams. So what was happening is with the same big team where we had around 50 people, like just on a QA team, we had, I think, around 5 QA leads there. And the problem was that the team wasn't really understanding all the stress and all the aspects which QA leads have. And people would not really understand mostly why the priorities change, and why do we do something today and tomorrow that's not important anymore, even though yesterday it was a top priority and everyone was asked to stay for longer hours and push hard to get this done. So at that point of time, I thought, what if we provide an opportunity to everyone to become a QA lead? And what if we just propose the team to walk shoes of the QA lead? And obviously that required some, at least minimum potential of the person to be capable of doing that. Still, you're working with a client, you deliver some big projects which cost lots of money and company's reputation. And definitely you don't want someone who is not interested in that to be in that position. But clearly from that big team, I had quite a bunch of people who were interested to try and to step in. So we started slowly doing this rotation, clearly with proper knowledge transfer, with proper guidance, helping those people and hand-holding. And I was really shocked by the results. Some of the people, they became a great QA leads, and I never thought that they would be so successful in those positions. And some people, they came to me and said, well, Sergey, now I understand what is the problem with these priorities. That's crazy. Like, client comes to us every day and they change priorities, and now I understand why they do it, because some of them are regulated by the government. Something is just a marketing competition and you just have to do it. And I now understand why we've been shifting gears all this time. And I was so surprised, and I was so happy about hearing that fact. And obviously, like, people share a lot between their working groups. And this message was spread across very quickly. And that helped so much with the team motivation, with understanding priorities and understanding why we are doing this or that, and really understanding all the heavy duties of the QA leads. So this exercise helped us to bring transparency, and this exercise helped us to unify the team and to be more productive and successful in that terms. Well, that was the last example here. And lastly, before we switch to our Q&A, I really like this quote from the book called Flat Army. So this book is about how you want to create engaged organization. And the quote is, the state at which employee engagement, the state at which there is reciprocal trust between the employee and leadership to do what's right, however, whenever, and with whomever. In simple words, how I read it is, the engaged team, which you really want to build, is a team which would be really looking into solution rather than completing some tasks which they are assigned and taking a formal approach to the job duties. But this team will be really looking to how you do things better and how your team evolves with every single project. Well, that's it from my side, and I would be more than happy to start our Q&A session right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sergey. So for anyone with questions, you can either pop the question into the chat box or just raise your hand and then we can unmute you as well, and you can just speak freely.
Hi.
Yeah, so Iris.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Sergei, for your for imparting your knowledge. I was just curious about some characteristics of potential employees or when you are interviewing. Is there a particular characteristic that you're looking for, or any educational background that like piques your interest in seeing if that candidate would be appropriate to be on your team? Like, how do you determine that?
It's a great question, Iris. So I think if you go with interviews and if you read some literature about that, like many people throw some advices that people should be really looking to develop themselves, do some courses, learning and stuff. But what I find is like these days, everyone is self-developing and going through courses. It became just so popular, so people really doing it just in sake of doing it, but not really because they want it. So that's not something what I really looking at. To me, usually what is important is first of all, if the person is really willing to think about the tasks, if the person is trying to solve the problem. And obviously, if you run interviews, you're most likely going through some situational cases and you offer your candidates to imagine that they're solving this or that problem under given circumstances. So that's the most important part to me. And what I usually get from that is, as long as person even doesn't know how to solve something, but the person is willing to illustrate what is the thinking process and how would you do that, that's exactly what I'm looking at my team members. Because let's admit it, right now, with the variety of technologies, even like looking at the QA, with a variety of tools we get, with automation, with kind of reporting, test management, metrics and stuff, it's impossible to keep up and to be aware of everything. But as long as the person is really looking at getting to that point where you need to be and has capabilities and aspirational aspects, that's something what I really like.
Thank you.
Sure. Ryan. I guess I've seen a hand from Ryan. Ryan, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah,
No worries.
so thank you, Sergei. So to build up on the previous question, I'm just wondering, have you had successes with, say, motivating people who are, say, for example, manual testers who just kind of grind through the work with QA for a long time? Have you had experience motivating them or kind of to develop that more inquisitive type of mindset?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's an excellent question here. So Brian, maybe I'll give you some example. I was at some point of time in a position when I had a big team of manual testers, and maybe on that team we had around 5 test automation engineers, and we really had to scale a lot. And unfortunately, at that point of time, it was super tough to hire good test automation engineers. So I had to look at some alternative options. So what I did, I just started talking to the rest of the team who were like manual testers, and to see if they're willing to learn and to get those test automation skills. So clearly there was lots of pushback. Not everyone wanted to do this, because let's admit it, it's something new which you need to learn. You'll need to start coding. You need to start learning tools. And there definitely were some guys who were willing to do that. And what I realized is we still needed to have more than people wanted. And we started kind of trying to push people to say, well, give it a try. We'll support you. That's what is needed. That's what our company is expecting. That's what the client is expecting. But what happened is those people who didn't really want to do it, they never did it. And that showed me that as long as person doesn't want to evolve, and as long as person doesn't want to develop skills, you really don't want to invest a lot of time there. And that's just a preference of that particular person. So probably it's better to spend time with someone who is willing to do things, even though if that person is in a worse position in terms of the current baseline for the technical skills. But as long as there is desire, you'll be able to get better results there.
All right. Thank you, Sergey.
Does it answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, it does, actually. So
sounds good. All right. Do you have any other questions?
I think we have a question here in the chat. Truly insightful presentation based on your experience. Which are some of the ways to overcome geographical distance in the current era of remote work, and to be vigilant and engage continuously?
So just to make sure I got the question is like how to do all of this with distributed team?
I think so. That would be my interpretation.
Okay. So that was a question from Romani. Romani, did I get it right? Well, we'll assume that we understood the question right. So yeah, basically, I guess most of my teams, they were distributed, and that's, I think, very common with all the companies right now. You have onshore, offshore, you have multiple offices even in onshores and stuff, and that's the reality. So I guess the only advice here is having more conversation with the team members. And I hate to say this, but to me, it's really important to have a personal touch with the team members. And obviously, especially during last 2 years, like with COVID, that was a problem. And you really cannot go for coffee with someone and have a chat during the lunch in your office lunchroom. So that's clearly a challenging thing. But we really need to see how we can come over this and how we can find how we can bridge these communication gaps. I'm sorry, how to bridge these communication gaps, and how we can establish a good relationship with the team members. So I guess do some events with one of my clients, which I recently worked for. I really loved the way they organized some events for the team members. So what they've been doing, like, I guess it's not new, but they've been organizing some quizzes. They've been sending some personal photos, like from travels and stuff. And they've been asking people to guess what is that. And I mean, it might sound something silly and not many people want it, but the way they organized it, it was really interactive. It was very engaging, and people loved it. I loved it absolutely. And normally such kind of events I would skip, but the way people did it, it was super exciting. And I truly believe that is something what makes people to engage, and that's something what makes people to feel as part of the team. Because if you think about like what makes people engaged, one huge aspect here is to feel that you're part of the team. Because I've been in some places where you don't feel that, so you just go to work and people don't talk much, they do their projects, and you feel that you're just attending your work. But in other cases, when you feel a great connection with the team members, with the leadership team, with your client, I was always willing to come back. Every morning I was waking up and I was really wanting to go back to work and be there, just to even talk to those people about how I spent my weekend. So I think that's the key here. But I guess if someone else has some other points or opinions about that, I think we can talk about it as well, as long as I don't see any further questions.
Hi, Sergey.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I have a question. So have to explain the transition between like from different field to the IT or QA. For example, my background is like mechanical. I switched my career from mechanical to IT, so QA. So,
Okay.
for you, like, how should we explain it in a better way to the transition?
So, Jamal, basically a question: how do you transition from non-IT job to IT, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know what? Actually, I think I might have a good answer here. And I did hire quite a bunch of people who were fresh to IT, and they've been doing absolutely different stuff in their past careers. So the first thing which I would clearly do is, right now we're lucky to have so much of great information, great courses online, and for specifically for quality assurance, a lot of them are free. So I would clearly start from there. Also, if, for example, you reside in Vancouver, I know that there is quite a bunch of on-site organizations which provide you with the learning courses, couple months. They also give you some sort of real assignment at the end where you work for a project. So that would clearly be a great option if you can afford going through that course. Those would not be free. And then I guess the most challenging part will be to find a job, because let's be frank, not too many people are willing to hire someone without like 50 years of experience, even for an intermediate key role. And that's ridiculous, but this is how it is. So then you'll need some, I guess, good piece of luck to find the right hiring team and to be able to probably express your desire and demonstrate your potential there. Because I was explaining one of the examples when I was interviewing the guy, the team previously didn't like him, but I really, and there were some obvious reasons why they did not like the person, but that person was able to demonstrate his potential, and I was able to see it. So I think that's what you need when you start your interviews.
So at this point, I have a question: is there any way to show up your skills or your attitude that you can like do it well? I mean, to show the hiring manager that you can do it. I mean, how can you, I mean, show your skills or your desire? I mean, how can you actually convince them?
Yeah, so well, you'll definitely be offered with some tasks which you probably want to try researching prior to your interviews, because many people would be asking the same questions about how the quality assurance works, like the theoretical part about how you produce your test cases, how do you achieve your test coverage, whether you do test automations, what are the test automation design patterns and stuff. So those things you definitely can get some rehearsal and get some homework. And then I think when you're provided with some situational tasks, whether to test something or whether to be in a position when you're dealing with an upset client. So that's where you have a great opportunity to show your potential. And even though you don't necessarily have these particular examples from your experience, since you've never been doing it, but if you can show how would you even deal with your current perspective being in mechanical industry, you obviously have very similar examples and similar occasions at your work, situations, right? So maybe you apply that experience which you have, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you simplify about quality assurance, what I was always looking at, like when interviewing people, is I was looking for someone who really capable of thinking and capable of finding solutions, and none of this really requires lots of experience. So that's probably the answer to your question.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Can I jump in just to suggest to Jamal?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a website. It's called U-Test.
Sorry, U-Test? Sorry.
Yeah.
U-Test.
And yeah, letter U and then test.
Test.
So I would suggest, yeah, I would suggest you to enroll in that website. They send tasks. Sometimes that they have a project, regular project. It's happening regularly, to be honest, and it is paid. They pay not much, but at least first you can try yourself in this industry.
Yeah.
You see if you like it or not.
Thanks so much.
Second, you can get some experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this would probably help you with to start with something at least.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It sounds like kind of freelance, but maybe like different. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point, Sean. And you know, Jamal, like at the end of the day, don't forget that you're already a tester. I bet you're using your online banking, you're using like BC Hydro to pay bills and stuff. So you're already testing all those web applications today. So that's exactly what you'll apply at your work once you become a tester officially.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
All right, no problem. Antonio, you had some question.
Hi, and good night. So I'm sorry, I apologize because my English is still improving, but
no worries.
I have a question. I have a couple weeks here in Vancouver. I have over 2 years experience as a software tester, and right now I'm trying to find an opportunity where I can show all my skill. But I think that English is gonna be a challenge because yes, I still improving. But I had the motivation, I had experience. I has been in the software industry almost 4 years. I had some skill as a developer as well. So could you give me any advice or to achieve more quickly this goal?
Yeah, absolutely, Antonio. So, well, first of all, I don't think that you have bad English, but I think you have great English, and that shouldn't be a big problem from what I hear. And secondly, I think you might want, if you still think that could be of concern, you might want to focus on the product companies. Because, like, you know, there are some service companies like consulting and those companies which build their business on a model where you inject your employees to the clients and they work as a staff augmentation as part of the client team. So that clearly implies great communication skills and experience or ability to be client facing. And then there are these product companies which don't have much of client engagement, or they just have different departments who would be doing implementation project with the clients. So I think with the product companies, you have a way better chances if you're concerned about your communication skills, because you'll not be client facing, you'll be working with your team members, and that's always easier in terms of communication skills. And also, if you think about like even increasing chances, maybe you're looking at some startups as well, because those folks often would be really willing to save on their expenses, and they will be more open-minded in terms of who they're looking for. So perhaps that's something what you want to explore as well.
Oh, okay. I appreciate. I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I guess lastly, so you can shoot me a LinkedIn request, because I quite often hire people, and I also have a network of folks who are hiring for QA positions as well. So perhaps I can help you at some point of time.
Okay, I appreciate. Thank you.
No problem. All right, we've got another 5 minutes. Any last minute questions? Well, okay. We have something in our chat. Oh no, we don't. Okay, perfect. Well, in this case, I'll be wrapping up. Jocelyn, back to you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking for you.
Thank you so much, Sergii, for your sharing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much, Sergei. That was a wonderful presentation. Yeah, definitely a lot of engagement. I think that you've helped a lot of people today in terms of navigating in their own career paths, in addition to, you know, if they're in a management role, and how to really get the best from their employees. So thank you so much. And then thank you to the group. I have recorded the session, so I'll be posting a link to the recording on the VanQ meetup page if you want to refer back to it or share it with anyone else in the group. So with that, thank you everyone very much for attending today, and then have a great evening.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.